Okay, now make sure everything's actually working. Maybe. Eddie. Cool. So, let's see. Um, let's see. Hi, everybody. This is probably the start of the YouTube video. So, hey there. This is Brandon, also known as Ashenworks, and today I'm just doing some casual D&D prep. We're gonna be mainly looking at this heist I have coming up. Context, players are getting ready for what is essentially a downtime time skip, and I'm taking the time to be able to prep some of the bigger adventures coming up. One of which is they are trying to assemble my version of the Rod of Seven Parts, which I took 7 swords of steel and silver, kind of taking a note from The Witcher and expanding upon it. So what we're going to do here is they're going after a key to one of these swords. It is locked in a vault protected by several half dragons, and then what they don't know is another enemy that will be featured later, not in this session. But right now they're going after an old rival of one of the characters known as Brimstone. He is a white half dragon paladin of conquest. So for those of you who don't know, Paladin of Conquest is from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and it is essentially based on the idea of in inducing fear in your opponent and making it to where you get a lot of bonuses for that. Either they can't move, or you get more than just advantage on the attack. It's been a while since I read it. Which I actually have Xanathar's over here, so we may take a look at that for some ideas. What we're going to do right now is I listed out a bunch of rooms that I want to be in the dungeon, and we're just going to add some guidelines to them, what we want in them, and then kind of go from there. This is super loud on my end. I'm going to turn the music down a bit. Try that out. It might be a little quiet on y'all's end. Apologies for that. But it's royalty free, so I don't get DMCA'd. So I'm just gonna write out real quick everything we had here. I'm gonna use we're gonna use heading 2 for these, because what I want is to then kind of situate these into floors. We can talk about those. So actually, maybe it's better to start these as list. So I had a war room. Come on, regular. War room, barracks. font size. Diviner's Room, because it has been mentioned several times that he has a divination wizard who spies on the party. Supply rooms, I was also thinking like generic rooms to include. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this list and organize it, and then we'll add details to it. What I've talked about for that divination wizard is that they divine from the stars, so they're more astrology based. And so their chamber is probably going to be near this observatory, so they can look out and kind of keep an eye on things. And then spelled interrogation wrong. This is what happens when I try to write while I'm a passenger in a car. I'm gonna say while I was driving. That would have been right. Let's see, study / library, armory, trophy room, and I listed important kills, and then a special prisoner, and then finally an arcane workshop. And then we're gonna make another section over here is stronghold abilities, because I'm using MCDM's stronghold and followers. And I'm basically just going to take all the notes that I wrote out, God, I don't know, months ago at this point. And we'll see what we can do from there. Hold and hold damage in response to taking damage. Remember that one being a good idea. There was some other note that I had for that. Oh, and then I had some other notes, decorations or glyphs that delayed fear, I think is what I was thinking of. Soul Cage technology, that'll be important for something else, and then Ring of Cannon / ballistas to defend. Okay, is that right? Roll. Yeah, ballista. Nice. So I had these, and then I had a few other things. I think I listed out creatures of note, kind of who I wanted to use for this. So Dragonborn / humanoid knights. I wanted there to be wyvern riders, and then of course, if you have wyvern riders, you need wyverns. Kobold / humanoid. Faculty / servants, because I'm not sure how I want to address them. And then another note over here, they do have access to firearms because my world is, I call it mage punk. I really don't have a word for it other than that. So it's like, it's steampunk but powered by magic, and I think that's what most people call that. Maybe it's dungeon punk. Kind of like that Magic the Gathering style technologies fueled by magic rather than we made the Steam engine and everything got better. And then of course guard drakes, and we'll take a look at some other creatures. A note we could add: there won't be, the main goal here is there's no true dragon. The closest thing to a dragon is Brimstone as the half dragon. And then Diviner, Wizard, and then actually there are two other half dragons that are in the mix. I think they're gonna get taken care of beforehand, but let me just, where did I put them? No. Apologies, I gotta find where those guys ended up. Oh wait, they're in one shots. Siege of Colbane. Both of these guys real quick. So these were some characters that I threw together for a one shot and then ended up becoming more part of my world building over time. Essentially, who they are is the Draconian Guard. So the one of the names that I came up with. But what they are is a collection of 5 half dragons, or 4 half dragons and a dragon, who are directly under the king of this country, and each represent one of the 5 dragons of Tiamat. So the chromatic dragons, red, blue, green, white, black, and essentially they are the elite task force for everything. I also at some point had a replacement for Brimstone because he died in that one shot. So I essentially made a weaker version of him that was more focused on the actual ice aspects rather than the other things. Now, gonna because I forgot. 3-saving, my phone is wrong. Then I won't post that to the group that I'm designing this for. That would be a bad idea. So this is kind of the base value that we have, and I have a map that I drew up somewhere, but I'm going to end up redesigning it for multiple levels anyway. But essentially, what this is Brimstone himself being the head of the half dragons. So there's the dragon that's above them, kind of leader and in charge of the bigger task. Brimstone is second in command of this group. He has his own stronghold, and taking a look at the options, the best thing ended up being a keep. Because he wasn't exactly a religious paladin, so his whole thing of having a temple didn't really make sense. He wanted something where he could keep soldiers, basically have an army on demand. So I came up with a mobile stronghold that is a glacier of never melting ice. At least while he's alive, it is tied to him. So that glacier allows him to control its movements, and he is slowly drifted towards the continent where the players are, chasing after Ace, who is a defector from not his direct command, but another one of the half dragons, Wormshade, I believe was her name. Oh, not what I wanted. Forgot to enable streamer mode. One sec. Oh yeah, a little note. This was from my first game. So yeah, Wormshade, or Carthian, the Decaying Blade. So yeah, I had those guys put together. Really, real quick. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I just keep remembering people who may want to. So what I'm imagining is Brimstone is being the elite person he is. He's going to hand pick the majority of these people. He's going to keep faculty to a minimum, but he wants the rest of these guys to be armed and ready to go. And it's probably more like an army where they clean up their own messes, they cook this, that, and the other. Especially having a wizard on board, I could see them using Animate Object to basically do Sorcerer's Apprentice. Right? Is it Sorcerer's Apprentice or Magician's Apprentice? Sorcerer's Apprentice, basically where Mickey does have all the brooms show up and clean everything, and then they kind of go crazy. We'll skip the crazy part. But yeah, so I can see these guys. These I'm gonna color code yellow because I'm not sure they're gonna show up. Just because that would be a lot. Having these 4 may be difficult. And then let's see. So now I want to take this list and we're going to categorize it. So I said I wanted the Diviner's Room and the Observatory to be together. The landing pad, port, and Wyvern Nest I feel will all be together. Guest Horde Chamber, what I'm imagining is like if a dragon of notable reputation were to visit, they would be allowed to stay for as long as they want, and that may mean keeping a part of their horde in the area. Essentially, this is another chance for the players to get treasure even if they don't complete the mission. Because the main mission is get the key, which I am going to, in case they're watching, randomly determine where it is. And that will also allow some replayability if I ever think of posting this, which I'm hoping to sometime in 2021. We'll label this yellow because I wanted to tie the Arcane Workshop to the Wizard, but it may also get tied to like the Armory. that may be a good spot for it. Like the barrack may have the war room, the training hall, and the armory. Like those may all go together. Mess hall is gonna have the kitchen. Brimstone's bed chamber is its own thing. The prison's its own thing. Guard Drake chambers, probably gonna be somewhere along here. The diviner's room is probably its own thing. All kitchen and then like supply rooms probably all go together. Commander's quarters and Brimstone's bedchamber are kind of the same thing, so I wouldn't expect that too much. I could see trophy room going in the study, kind of like a hunting lodge style. So we may see something along those lines. The port is definitely its own thing. The interrogation chamber is going to be a part of the prison. Kind of like solitary confinement. King's chambers may not get added. We'll see. Because this may be a part of more of the, not the purpose of the base, so why include it? And that comes down to Brimstone's philosophies over the actual need. This I'm gonna label green because we need to go do some digging on that. Ring of Ballista and cannons, kind of its own thing. Armory is gonna allow access to firearms. So where did I put that? There. And then kind of overall, we have the decorations or glyphs that induce delayed fear. And delayed fear is just going to be when the target of the fear is Brimstone. So as long as Brimstone is not in your presence, you're not affected by it. Because most people may... And I also don't expect the party to actually trip a lot of traps because they are very rogue-oriented. As in, a lot of them have access to thieves' tools, or high perception, or high investigation. So, not expecting a lot to actually get set off. They're just there more for the adventure's purpose. Because this is a place designed that if you somehow get in, you're stuck till either you're dead or Brimstone's dead. And I don't expect much past that. So, looking through this, we have a pretty good list. I believe there used to be rooms in a keep. Rooms in a medieval castle. There we go. Kind of doing a quick glance, seeing if there's anything I may want to add. I mean, laboratories are going to be a part of the barracks, so I'm not too... What is a solars? That did not actually bring me to... That was... oh, the solar. Oh, intended for sleeping in private quarters and used by the Lord's family. Oh, so it's... Oh, I get it. It's the sun. It's the head. It's the head of the house kind of thing. See. Trying to think. I think we have a good list of rooms. A lot of these are gonna be their own thing. The next thing to think about is how we want to structure this. So what I'm imagining, this is where headers are going to come in handy, is we're going to do sub level 1. You'll see why here in a minute. Level 1, level 2, level 3, and then we'll say level 4. I'm giving myself a little extra room there, and then we're gonna make all of these header ones. Because what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take these, organize them by what floor I want them to be on. Because I imagine a lot of the amenities are going to be on the main floor. A lot of the more important rooms are going to be on the higher floors. So for instance, looking at these, I'm going to want the port probably on equal level as the barracks. For easy access, the mess hall and kitchen are also going to be kind of in that area, because what I'm imagining is what the party's going to be looking for is they're going to look for Brimstone's chambers, assuming the key is hidden somewhere in there. But depending on where it's at, it could be actually in one of the other rooms. And what would that really mean for them? I believe the Shrine of Galloingus would probably be on the first floor, because it's probably going to be the closest thing to like an altar as you're going to get. I actually don't think we'll have a third level. I'm imagining only really 3 floors. And it's going to be, the glacier's kind of odd in how it's set up. I'm imagining like these 3 spires that are all in different heights. So those may cause some separation in the party or different dynamics. So, because what I'm really imagining is like we have a really party first level, so it's going to be a bigger circle. Make sure I'm showing up on the camera. Bigger circle, and then you get into level 2, which has like the diviner's room and the observatory, so that's an open section that could possibly be entered. And then maybe over in another, or in that same spire, you get like the study and the library. So what we would do instead is pull out the trophy room, and I actually don't know where that's going right now. We're actually just going to move this. And what we're going to end up doing is having like a little wizard tower in the keep. So there's this one section that has like the observatory and the study and library, and then in another bigger part of the glacier, make sure I'm still showing up on camera, we have Brimstone's chambers, which is like his trophy room, and then his actual chamber himself. And these are going to be things he's taken, whether those be magic items or trophies from BC Slain or other things that may have happened. and that's actually where some of this may come in, because what I'm imagining is they like to keep a hold on you just a little longer after you've passed using Soul Cage, which I believe is in Xanathar. So it's actually, I gotta look up a few things in here. So let's start with that. I really should have labeled this before we got started. So yeah, Soul Cage. It's 6th level necromancy. Which actually that is gonna determine. Oh, and a couple things. I actually thought of another. So teleportation circle. That's gonna be in there, and then we also need a scrying room, which I think I'm gonna add to the diviner's room somewhere. That'll be a little chamber with the bowl of water, crystal orb, whatever the diviner uses. And then look up the definition of communion. Make sure I'm using this correctly. No. It would be communication. Yeah, it'd be communication chamber. So what that's going to be is a room designed for conversation across great distances. So that way someone who doesn't know the sending spell can have a longer conversation with someone. Probably can only be used a certain number of times a day and depends on distance, but we'll figure that out. And that's important to note because what I would like to see is that get built into my world at some point, but this country is holding on to that technology. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. So, next up, I wanted to look at Soul Cage because what I did, this was never this was never a good idea. It was a very fond idea of mine. I have a region called the Void, which if you are on my blog, I just released a rogue subclass called the Marked. So you know the Void is my version of the Astral Sea or the Astral Plane, some call it. In that it's where dreams go, it's where your soul goes when you're lost from your body. It's like your astral self. This would be, you still have your astral self, but it exists in the void. And that kind of also pulls from like the Dark Brotherhood, with Sithis and like this area that the lost go. Those who are lost go to the void. And so what you end up seeing is that it also makes a great place to harness souls. Not exactly in the same way Hell does, because, you know, Hell, soul is currency, and that's how they power their machines, by burning them. This is more like, one way to achieve immortality is to create a place for your soul that will never cease. The void is a place that will never cease. So because of that, I had a character. His name's Carmen. He is a warlock, and he wanted to capture this demonic wizard who, if you've played Destiny, is basically just a Omnigul clone. and wanted to trap her coven in a soul cage, and he did. He got like what is it? It's just a reaction. So he did it as soon as she died. And one thing we were talking about was, well, it only lasts for 8 hours, so what are you going to do with it? And what we talked about was the fact that in my world, one of the few ways to create your own sentient weapon is to put a soul in it, and it will take on the soul. It'll take on the being of whoever soul it was. And he thought about doing that at some point. They've kind of grown past that, and they're doing something extra crazy. But I won't get too much into that. That's for a different stream. But what we wanted to do was make it last longer than 8 hours. So I said, okay, you still have some of those void crystals from when one of his party members got trapped in the void from the Deck of Many Things. Said, yeah, okay. Just use the same spell, break your current soul cage, which is the tiny silver cage worth 100 GP. Basically break it, which in this context really just means open it, because he made sure it was one that could open and close. And then use your reaction to move the soul. And this isn't something you can normally do because it's not a humanoid anymore. It's just I don't even know what you would call it, a celestial at that point, or a demon, depending. So he just transferred it into the void crystal, and now he has this permanent host for it. Downside, if they were ever to grow powerful enough, they're now immortal because you've trapped them in a void crystal, which is the easiest phylactery known to man in Terrax. And he can't use any of the soul cage abilities because it's now a permanent host rather than the context of the spells. So that was kind of the give take of it. He can now use it in magic item creation as CR 20-something ingredient, because they were 4th tier by that point. But yeah, so what I wanted to look at was kind of what they could get away with using Soul Cage for, and there's a few different instances of this. You can do Steal Life, Query Soul, Borrow Experience, and then Eyes of the Dead, the Deady. So probably wouldn't use either of these. What they would end up doing, they'd probably only use Query Soul and Eyes of the Dead, because where I'm imagining this is in the interrogation chamber. And they probably keep someone's soul around long enough to get answers. Or it's some sort of instance where it's a soul cage, but it keeps their soul for up to 8 hours until you have time to resurrect them or do magic jar or something like that. That is a 6th level spell, so I also need to define that the Diviner Wizard can cast 6th level spells such as Soul Cage. And that was one thing I wanted to keep in mind. Actually, while we're on the research track, I need to look at Paladin. Let's do this all while I have Xanathars out. So, all I'm looking at for Oath of Conquest, is what his aura gets him. He is reduced to 0 while in the aura. Takes psychic damage equal to half your paladin level if it starts its turn there. So that's an interesting take. And then I wanted to look at now downside of this. Brimstone's actually a player character of mine that I use in actually that Warlocks campaign from earlier. Because I wanted to try out of the Conquest because I had the idea of running it with the Dragon Fear feat, which is also in here. So let's take a look at that. That's after the backstories. Come on. Yeah, Dragon Fear. So use your breath weapon. Does a roar. Each creature of your choice within 30 feet. So I'll make sure that's listed in a stat block as well. And then he's going to have that as rechargeable in place of breath weapon. So he won't have the cone that the half dragon stat block gets, but he will have the fear roar because he is just going to want to trap the party because what he really wants is to interrogate Ace to figure out how much information he's let slip. And that will be the main goal. Now, let's see. I'm trying to think what else he has. Oh, he does use a glaive. He had, I believe that was what's the name of it? Frost. Something. It was Frost something. It's the chill rend or whatever that ends up being in the DMG, which we'll look at in a bit. So Scornful Rebuke. Whenever a creature hits you with an attack, that creature takes psychic damage equal to Kamad. So that'll be something I may include. I may actually also change that. And then I'm not going to give him the 20th level feature. But I may end up giving him... I will probably end up giving him his channel divinities. Which is Conquering Presence. Which is actually just his... It's actually just his Dragon Fear, so I probably won't include that. But I'll may give him 1 or 2 uses of Guided Strike. Okay. So that's a pretty good build out of him. And what I'm essentially going to do is I'm going to give him a very straightforward stat block, because he's going to have minions, he's going to have stronghold abilities, and he's going to have layer actions. So I need to make sure I make the stat block concise enough that we're not too bombarded in the middle of the session with all of his abilities. And that may mean making something like essentially a flow chart of kind of what you need to be looking at session to session, or round to round, I guess I should say. But yeah, that's all. It's all of his abilities from the subclass. Last thing I wanted to look at, and then we're going to take maybe a 2-minute break, is I wanted to look at Tasha's, because it added some new feats, and I'm curious if there's anything we could apply to Brimstone here. I know there were a few things that may be worth noting. Because I think a glaive is slashing damage, so maybe the slasher feat, which would allow him to just stack extra abilities on his critical hits, or even Piercer. Maybe not. I don't. The only other one I was thinking was maybe Eldritch Adept. And giving him an invocation. But that would be dependent on what we saw from that list. I don't think there's anything that'd be too good for him, other than maybe Devil's Sight, but I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. Because I'm hoping he will have, unless the players are smart, which they are, I'm hoping he'll have the Diviner Wizard with him, and he'll probably have his Guard Drake. He's going to have his own, and then potentially a couple Knights to come help him. Worst case scenario, the players don't go about this go about this in a way that avoids some of these issues. He's gonna have Brimstone, you're gonna have the Diviner Wizard, you're gonna have both of these guys, and you're gonna have the Guard Drake and some Knights, and then that's gonna be a 4-hour combat. So we'll see. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now. And then I wanted to look. I mean, Eldritch Mind would be fine, but I don't think he has any concentration spells. And then I would have to look at Player's Handbook and Tosh and Xanathar's, because I know those also added some invocations. But yeah, so this is kind of what I'm thinking right now. What we'll do from here is not necessarily figure out the number of. Well, we may kind of work with how many people are actually in the keep. Not sure how we'll go about figuring that out, but kind of lay this out. I want the teleportation circle to not be an easy access, so that is going to be, well, it'll be somewhere on the first level, I'm assuming, because it's got to be able to hold a lot of things. And then we may end up moving the port to, not the port necessarily, but like the landing pad and the Wyvern Nest to its own level, maybe somewhere on level 3. So I don't know. We'll play around with this because I think these are going to be important. But yeah, I think this is a good start. We're gonna take. Let's see, we've been going for almost an hour, so we're gonna take a couple minutes break. And see what we can come up with in the meantime. When we come back, I'm going to grab Strongholds and Followers so we can take a look at the keep and see if there's anything interesting we can nab. And then we're going to start going through each of these rooms and kind of deciding what we want to be in them. In the meantime, enjoy the tunes, and I'll be back in, yeah, maybe like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. All right, be back soon. Alright, and we're back with way too many books for our own good, because I realized other things I want to look at were our creatures of note, see if there's anything we can add. So I grabbed Monster Manual, Mordenkainen's, Volos, Strongholds. I already had the Dungeon Master's Guide, I realized. So doing more research on that end. And actually what we may end up using is the Dungeon Feeler, the Dungeon Chamber contents at the back of the DMG to kind of decide what we're using. Is it Frostbrand? Is that what it's called? I was thinking back to the sword, because my other option would be to give him an Unholy Avenger, because he has a high enough level paladin to use it. It's a Frostbrand. What does that get you? She deals an extra 1d6 cold damage. So give him an Unholy Avenger. Extra 2d10 versus Celestials or Fae. And then it's a +3 to attack and damage rolls. And then yeah, he'll have enough levels in Paladin to get Aura gives and allies advantage on spells and other magical effects. Cool. So that finishes him out, other than what, we'll figure out what AC he has and what that means for his armor. I know he has black plate armor, and then it'll probably +3, because at this point we're getting to the high magic portions of my campaign, and I don't mind giving him some more over the top items to make him more competitive with the party, because they're going to start making a lot of that stuff anyway, and I think that's only going to be one attunement slot for him, so we'll probably give him some other things. I don't like giving them a lot of the non-attunement items, because I feel like that's going to end up being too much for the party, because they're also going to get treasure from his horde, which is on his base, of course. And then potentially whatever he has on his person. So since he's very much he's very much prepared to take on, from what I remember, he was more prepared to take on those of the divine magics. So he would be built to take on clerics and other paladins. So I'll probably account for that, but otherwise, I don't know what all I'll give him. I don't want to give him too many legendary things. Like, I'm already giving him +3 plate. I'm already giving him +3, +3 glaive using the Unholy Avenger. He doesn't have any warlock levels, so I'm not giving him the Rod of the Pact Keeper. I thought about it. Rod of Rulership would be fun, but not exactly his thing. So, I don't know. I'll look more at magic items for him later. What we wanted to do now was look at Strongholds and Followers by MCDM. Because what we're doing, we're not necessarily worried about the size of the stronghold. But what we wanted to look at was some of the things you can do with a keep and a temple. And then also what we want to look at is kind of what stronghold abilities you get for being a paladin and see if we can apply that to what we have here. So, for instance, training we're not too worried about. That gives... because we're going to give them extreme cold training, which just means they won't suffer the effects of the stronghold itself, because it's literally built of ice, and that'll take up that. Don't really get an idea of what other things it could have. So in terms of training, so we're not too worried about that. Skip through the tower. The temple, the one thing I did want to look at is I may... I don't know if this would make sense for him. He could have the ability to summon a servitor, which are basically like these sub-deities that you can call upon, but for him it would have to be something draconic, and yes, I could use the, what is it, the Akashi, or whatever those dragon demons are in Mordenkainen's, but I don't know if that really fits the bill here. Plus, that's introducing another spellcaster, which isn't... there's no offense. Not a lot of fun to run multiple spellcasters. I ran 7 at one point. That was a bit much. Anyways, so let's look at, not the Ranger's Lodge, I want... oh! He could have a mount. That was the other thing. I don't think I'm going to give him one, so I'm not too worried about it. It's also weird that the Paladin doesn't get... I guess because it's a chapel, you can probably look at the Cleric. Paladin's the only one in Strongholds that doesn't have art. That was interesting. So he's not going to have... well, he's going to have domain effects, that is... extreme cold environment. And these are things that are going to indicate to the players what the dungeon is going to be like. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I don't want to give him the... I don't want to give him anything that will allow him to detect the players unless... we'll look at evil strongholds here in a bit, but I have to think on that one. So initial count 20. Chaotic or evil creature, which for him would be lawful or good creature. Well, actually, it'd be chaotic or good creatures within 120 feet must succeed on a con save or be bound by chains. Probably won't through that. Flying creatures must succeed a con check or immediately land. And then you can also choose an ally within sight to gain an AC bonus equal to your charisma bonus. That would be cool. I think I'm giving him too many abilities, because he's just going to be in 1 or 2 fights. So I think letting him use Divine Smite to force fear more often will be good. And I may be relying on that too much, but we'll see. So what we may end up doing is we'll choose one of these. Well, something like that. Give him like an improved critical ability, because he's gonna be a crit fisher. That's how I run paladins. So he'll be wanting advantage on everything and work that way. Probably do 3 a day for that. I probably won't give him the legendary abilities, to where like he can auto save, because I think I'm giving him a lot of other things, and this fight may not go the way I'm expecting. And then when I write it, I'll give him the legendary protection. Kind of looking through evil abilities, I don't see much that can make it to where minions who can hear you have advantage, but his aura is going to allow him to do that. Allies, I don't think would be good. Yeah, I don't see anything here that would be worth investing the time in designing right now, which is fine. And I'm not too worried about followers. The last thing I wanted to look at was there are some magic items that I've been wanting to introduce via a stronghold, but I haven't had a chance yet. There was a frost one that would have been fun. If not, this book's good just for giving me some ideas of what I want to do with my tougher characters. Because, like, for instance, I could give him the High Templar's Glaive in here, which allows him to summon an elemental servitor. But not something I think he would use. And there's one called Obey in here. But again, it summons servitors, which I don't think he's interested in. I think he's more interested in his own abilities rather than others, because he wants to serve. And that's another thing I'll be adding in, is kind of what are his... I need to go find his old character sheet and put his bond, flaw, ideal, and personality traits. Because those would come in handy. I think this one would be interesting, giving him a weapon that isn't just paladin only. It's just you gotta use glaives, which I don't think a lot of my players do. And a lot of them aren't built for a fear build, so it may not be something that's really interesting. Actually, are there any paladins? There's one. There's one paladin in that entire group. So we'd have to see how that goes. Let's see. So we have that. couple other things. We're gonna take a look through the various monster manuals. I am gonna end up having to make some stuff, or at least variants. Like I had an idea for like a blue kobold that I wanted to add. They would have a different effect than the scurrying ability. And then the other thing I wanted to look at was hold up. I haven't actually broke this open yet. I have Icewind Dale. I might run it at some point, but I honestly just get the adventures so I can steal ideas out of them. Which I'm sure a lot of people do. Because, like, they run through 10 different towns, which means I get an idea of how Wizard of the Coast designs towns. And then how they design this villain. Because she has, like, 3 different forms, and how does that work? And then I usually like seeing how they do NPCs. Especially if I'm designing D&D 5e, why not look at D&D 5e material? And then the other thing I wanted to look at was, I know they had, should be environmental things I can look at. I'm just trying to remember where those are. Yep, here it is. Wilderness Survival. Under running the adventure. Also, hey, if you're designing a super long adventure, the adventure flowchart is the best thing ever, and you should use it. Because you get a very quick look at like how things should work, what level people should be, and go from there. I'm actually using that for an Underdark adventure I was hoping to write, which I need to work on. Maybe another stream. So, Wilderness Survival, the reason I wanted to look at this is because it gives an idea of how the extreme cold works. And so, every hour, con save DC 10, or gain 1 level of exhaustion. Now, this won't be inside the prison, because I don't want to bog them down. I don't want to bog them down too much once they're inside. This is just a chance for me to give them a level of exhaustion. The inside should actually be fairly lit and is a military base on purpose. The only time they might face this is in... so this will be outside and the prison, because what they want is they want their prisoners to be uncomfortable, so maybe they're more likely to talk and get moved up to a different place. I wanted to look at how the also looking at blizzards, which imposes a disadvantage on ranged weapon attacks and wisdom perception checks. Extinguishes open flames, disperses fog, erases tracks in the snow. It makes flying by non-magical means nearly impossible. So all of those are good to know. I think those two are the main things I wanted out of this. Just because the DMG does cover it, but I mean, only so well. And then goes into character creation a bit. That's always nice. So yeah, that covers Icewind Dale pretty well. I did want to look in the DMG again and see if there was anything. It says, oh, more spam on my website. Leave. Where is environments? In Unworlds in the material plane, not what I need. Unusual environments? That may be. Oh, wilderness survival, maybe? That'd be good. Let's go to 109 and see. So yeah, I realize this planning's kind of all over the place, but it's because I'm building for my players, so kind of thinking ahead on what would actually be important, because what they're going to end up doing is one Ace is part of a thieves guild, Ace being the defector from the Brimstone's country, and will work with them to scout out the place and try to uncover the location of the key before they even truly enter the place. So what that'll mean is there'll be a phase 1 of scouting, and they'll figure out some of the effects of the environment and what they're going to be dealing with. And then once they're inside, they'll realize that there are other objectives that they may want to consider taking care of. For instance, I think I know who the special prisoner is going to be, and they would be a big help in one of the other quest lines. In case they're watching this, no spoilers. So there will be that. There are some players interested in how this would work for some of their own gain. And then also this may lead to something for their next objective. Because the other thing they need to figure out is the location of the vault that this key goes to. So it will be interesting to see how they want to handle that. Okay, so the extreme cold is just the extreme cold is just the come on, brain. The same thing as Icewind Dale. Yeah. Slippery ice. We'll make that stronghold ability, because I think that because if the floors are already ice, Brimstone could make it to where can cause the floor to become slippery ice. And then slippery ice is difficult terrain. Why did I capitalize that? When a creature moves across slippery ice for the first time on a turn, it must succeed a DC 10 dexterity check or fall prone. Now imagine that you are doing that to move into Brimstone's area. You're not feared yet. You fall prone. You're out of movement. And now he's going to move in. You can't get up. Because once you're feared, your speed drops to 0. And that's going to essentially lock in someone and then make it to where they need to deal with that instance. And then that's stronghold abilities. Then ice trap. thin ice can hold 3d10 x 10 pounds per 10-foot square area whenever weight on an area of thin ice exceeds its tolerance, the ice breaks. So that's something else we can look at. I'm imagining that on the prisoner level, because what that means is if you fall through, you're either falling into a chamber or you're going to fall into frigid water. And frigid, Jesus, frigid water. So, that would be a fun combination. We'll see how that works. And those would be areas that you would know, you would see the guard isn't patrolling. Maybe they're patrolling the areas around that hallway. Maybe it's just an extra hallway between rooms, or between prison cells, and that's why they don't go, because they can check every cell without going down that hallway. And then once you go down it, you realize why. Because if someone's trying to escape and they're like, oh, the guards don't come down this hallway, I'll be safe. That is until you hit the thin ice. And then you're in trouble. But we'll see. And then they don't have an airship. They do have boats that will get tied and dragged with the glacier. We'll go through some traps I want to include another time. Let's see. How long have we been streaming? Almost an hour and a half at this point. I think I'm going to go ahead and call it, because I think I made a lot of progress as far as kind of what environments I want to include. I'm not too great on room descriptions, but we may pick that up later this week after I've given it some more thought. I'm going to get a map put together so we can do notes on the map. And then we'll maybe spend some time statting out some creatures, because I got a few weeks before I got to run this. So I want to make sure we cover all our bases and we make this something that as soon as I'm done running it, I can release it on DM's Guild or on Drive-Thru, and share it with you guys. And then maybe do a post wrap-up of what went well, what could have been better, what did I forget about, and go from there. So yeah, that's where I'm going to end it here. We may be back later today with some Gwent or some Minecraft. I don't know, something casual. But thank you to whoever's watching on YouTube or whoever's joined for the stream today, and I will catch you guys tableside. See ya. Hey, okay, I ended it for YouTube. Actually, let's raid a channel. Who to raid? Who to raid? Nobody's really streaming right now. Yeah, we'll hold. We'll go to Reaper. So yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed, and like I said, see y'all tableside. Have fun.